Oh God, this makes it look like I'm in some insane asylum. You guys, I have great news. It's a brand new day. The sky just feels so much bluer. And that's because I'm not making that stupid eco-brutalist video still. But no joke, I think that's probably the worst experience I've ever had making a video. I feel like we must be in some type of renaissance or something, because I just saw Across the Spiderverse, which is probably gonna be the best movie of this decade. And then once I got back home, I played Tears of the Kingdom. And in the same week, I finished the finale of Succession. Like, we be eating a little too good. I feel like I made this video specifically because I felt like Across the Spiderverse was gonna fuck out. Like, I really did think that, man, this gives me so much room to just walk around. It's making me laugh so hard. It's not even funny. Just because Sony has had a horrible reputation before Into the Spider-Verse. Like, yeah, they made Into the Spider-Verse and then Mitchell's versus the Machines, but with a sequel, it felt like a ticking time bomb, like inevitably just gonna fuck it all up. But they didn't fuck up, and now I'm gonna be the most annoying person for a week now just talking about the movie. And on the drive home, I just sat there in silence and I was like, this is the same studio that made the Emoji Movie? I feel like that one EDP meme. What the fuck happened? And what I wanted to do with this video is figure out, what did Sony do to become so good when before I hated them? It was making me uncomfortable. I didn't want to keep it. I don't know, man. I just gotta find a new place to film. I think I'm just traumatized from my roommate walking in on me my first video. But yeah, Sony. I bet there's gonna be some motherfucker that says, Sony never had a bad reputation.
Be so goddamn serious.
Just gonna give a little history. Okay, so Sony, as we all know, sells lots of things like TVs, phones, music, listening equipment. I'm using a fucking Sony camera right now, actually. But then over time, they started making movies, and like a lot of them. I didn't realize they made so many movies.
Also, you should follow me on Letterboxd.
I have banger reviews such as... And this was all done once they bought Columbia Pictures. Like, they have some real classics I absolutely enjoy. Others that I hate. Like other film companies, they didn't jump right into animation. They were dabbling around a little bit, and Sony alone was really pushing the boundaries of animation before it was even an animation studio. They were the ones able to make Monster House a thing. Which, before somebody says it, Monster House was actually not the first Sony movie, even though it came out before Open Season. I believe it was just distributed through Sony. However, the Sony Animations brand was not affiliated with it yet. Also, Monster House has got to be one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And so right off the bat, Sony Animations released Open Season in 2006. I mean, not a terrible start. It's their first movie. And then they made Open Season! And then they made Open Season 2, which wasn't that good.
And then they made Party with the Treasure Meatball!
And then they made the Smurfs movie. And then they made Hotel Transylvania, who was the guy who also directed Primal, which is actually a very good show. I was thinking about making a video about it, but I'm really not sure. And then they made Goosebumps. And then they made Angry Birds. And then they made the Emoji Movie. And it doesn't even stop there. They made Peter Rabbit, which, in my opinion, is worse than the Emoji Movie, just because it stars the one and only James Corden. And then they just kept making sequels for stuff nobody wanted. I remember being so fucking mad back in middle school that Sony just had no quality control and were able to make the most dog shit movies imaginable. Like, I didn't even know movies could get that bad. Like, what was even going on in Sony Studios that made it this bad? And I think the only reason why we actually do know what was going on in Sony Studios is because of the Sony hack. If you didn't know about the Sony hack, I am glad to educate you, because this shit was actually a terrifying event to happen to people. The Sony hack was just a compilation of leaked scripts, documents, medical records, social security numbers, and confidential messages just spread across the internet. Average employees walked into work with this on their screen. That shit is terrifying. And it was done by a small group based in North Korea in response to the Sony movie called The Interview, where Donkey Kong tries to kill Kim Jong-un. And I think people too often are like, haha, L, they got hacked, like when Facebook gets hacked and stuff. But this hack seriously fucked up people's lives. Sony clearly didn't anticipate something like this, because according to some IT guys working at Sony, it was just as secure as a Starbucks Wi-Fi network. And there are so many interesting interesting things that came out of the Sony hack. Like people being able to look at the leaked documents sent by higher ups caused so much chaos. But I want to stick to the main topic of the video. And the most interesting part to me was what was going on in the animation studio, because it gives us the answer why it was doing so bad. Like I'll probably have to cut a lot of the quotes from employees being sent to higher ups. There are so many. And I think it's just kind of sad that these people weren't able to actually spread their ideas past certain people. They weren't even allowed to make statements on the internet to ensure that they kept their job. Morale was low. Only one Hollywood exec put it months before the hack. It's a toxic dump over there now in terms of stress and pressure and downsizing. One employee, for example, said this: "We do not seem to be doing new or original ideas anymore unless they come from term deal players, remakes, sequels, and movies which are better off being true Hollywood stories. Art development execs should focus on new, fresh material and not be permitted to simply remake another money." There is a general blandness to the films we produce. Although we manage to produce an innovative film once in a while, we continue to saddle with the mundane, formulaic Adam Sandler films. And this same person goes on to criticize that half the movie's budget doesn't actually go into the creative or artistic process. They go into making the actor feel like they're flying first class. That's where most of the money to make a movie goes for Sony. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. There are blog posts reporting that higher execs were making a lot of black jokes. Because of their reputation of making formulaic films, nobody with a creative process wanted to join on to the team. Sony animators knew exactly what was wrong with Sony Animations, except the people running Sony Animations. That happens so much more often than you might think. It's not the animation studio's fault, it's Sony Pictures' fault and the CEOs for setting them up to fail. Once you're in a cycle of being known for making bad movies, nobody wants to help you. And one person even said the only competent director to come out of Sony Animations was Gendy. These leaks even revealed that Amy Pascal was just an actual supervillain. She'd be saying racist things about Obama, slamming actors for being talentless hacks, and even goes as far to say that her own employees have too much of an ego and are basically not worth the money that she's putting into them. Like, she is straight up a Succession character, which I actually was going to make a video about, but then Across the Spiderverse came out, and then this video idea just sounded a lot more interesting. If you need any more reason to not like her, she was the one to spread the rumor that Across the Spiderverse would have a love triangle between Hobie, Gwen, and Miles, which is just not true. Like, maybe just a little bit, but she doesn't even know what is good for the movie. And I don't want to bag on her too much. The other CEO is also just a dickbag. I say all of this to show you that Sony knew they were not doing good, and they were looking to turn that around. And Sony Animations especially wanted to change. So Amy Pascal and Michael Linton were basically just spreading their legs for Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, so that these two could just make a small team of collaborators and remake the renaissance of the Pixar's 2000s. And I mean, of course they would fucking choose these guys. These two made one of the best Sony movies, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. But they said no. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller knew the working conditions at Sony Animations and didn't want to be a part of it. They said this: "Artists have been treated like paper, and it's too hard to do great work there. One of the reasons we're pushing so hard on these projects is important for people to see how good things can be when they're not written by a computer." Honestly, they're super fucking based for that. The beef between these two parties was clear as ever, but Amy Pascal presented the idea to rejuvenate the Spider-Man franchise with an animated comedy. And Phil Lord and Christopher Miller said yes, under the condition that they could have total free creative control. Miles Morales could be the main character and can derive from the Spider-Verse comics. My theory is that they had an idea to make a superhero movie or something in the comic book area already, and Spider-Man is already such a well-known IP. They didn't want to give that to somebody else. And the fact that Sony actually let them have creative freedom says a lot on why they even said yes. I, for the love of God, cannot understand why these corporations never learn. It is a constant fight having creative freedom and doing the idea that's gonna make money, given to the animators by execs, of course. So why did they actually give these two creative freedom when before they didn't? That's because two movies Sony didn't make was able to make Spider-Verse. Hey, this might be a hot take, but Spider-Verse would not be what it is today without Peanuts. I mean, making the movie about a comic strip, the artistic direction was of course going to go into the style of those comic strips, and mixing the 2D and the 3D was innovative at the time. Rest in peace.
Blue Sky Studios.
And the movie was a success. And of course, Sony's gonna look to the artistic vision as maybe a reason why. And I think the much bigger movie to make an impact on this Spider-Verse production was unironically Chris Pratt's best performance of his entire career, Lego Movie. Phil Lord and Chris Miller were actually offered the movie from Lego. And at first they were very hesitant to make a 2.5-hour ad for Lego. But Lego from the get-go was able to give them total creative freedom besides little marketing things there and there. And the Lego Movie also pushed animation. Like, take the example that there's no motion blur in this movie. Everything is made out of Lego. Chris Miller, Phil Lord, they knew this was the type of animation they liked to do. So I think Sony, seeing the success of these movies, were just little stepping stones on giving Phil Lord and Chris Miller total creative freedom over Spider-Verse. Okay, so the end. Like, the 2 Spider-Verse movies and Mitchell's vs. the Machine. Best things to come out of Sony. The end. That's all. Okay, so hi. Yeah, this is editing Josh, and the Vulture article describing the working conditions across the Spider-Verse literally just came out, and I really think it needs to be addressed. I was under the impression that they were both working on Beyond the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse at the same time, but it seems that isn't the case at all, and it looks like they need to push back on so many different things for Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is especially sad to see, because it seems that producers, especially like Phil Lord, will tell animators to just scrap hours of work just for story changes.
One person is quoted as saying, Phil does have good ideas, he speaks creatively really well, and listening to Phil can be inspiring, but the process is not inspiring. The analogy for the way Phil works, it's getting a whole bunch of construction workers to make a building without a blueprint. You get them to start putting bricks on top of each other, you get the wood guys to put the wood in, put the windows in, and get some metal scaffold in there, and he's like, nah, knock that part down.
That's obviously going to be a very emotionally taxing situation. And guess what Amy Pascal said about this? I guess welcome to making movies. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Chris Miller and especially Phil Lord, because of the expectations for this movie, I believe are trying to make the best movie possible no matter the cost. However, the cost comes at the people actually working on the movie, the animators. But I believe there can absolutely 100% without a doubt be a middle ground between ensuring a great movie to be made and treating your artist's work with respect. To a certain degree, I have been in Phil Lord's situation. In high school, I used to be a producer for my school's broadcasting team. If you want, you can watch my videos on this other channel that I just stored a bunch of random shit on. I was extremely competitive. I was staying at the school past hours, almost setting off the alarm multiple times. So yeah, other students were very, very mean about this show. How these shows typically went was you'd have an amazing video by a very talented student and it would blow everyone away. And then the next 2 videos were just seemed to be made with some kid's iPhone. It had some passion to it, but it would be relentlessly made fun of by other students. I felt that it was my job to minimize those types of videos as much as possible to keep the quality up. I worked my ass off for this, and the hardest thing for me to do was to go and tell people that their work needs some changes or just can't be in the broadcasting show at all because of how poor the quality was. However, over time, I learned that you can't just think of the bigger picture, you have to get into the details. The quality only really changed when I gave people tasks and helped them out to create the vision they wanted to do. You can't just go hashing different cuts and cuts. I am not saying that I am even close to the situation that these animators or producers were under in. However, I'm saying this to make people realize that there can be a middle ground between quality and respecting artists' work. Rather than Phil Lord, for example, telling someone to build half a building and then tearing it down once it's finished, if executives much higher than Phil Lord gave both producers and animators enough time, Phil Lord would have the opportunity to make this building fully realized so it wouldn't have to be cut. It's just very sad to see for these workers, and these artists and animators absolutely need to unionize. As I'll prove later in the video, every single one of these people are truly artists, and it ties into my overall message of this video. Part of the deal with Amy Pascal and these two writers was that they were able to actually be producers this time. So that means they were able to pick out all these different artists and creatives to make the movie. And they picked out geniuses like Justin K. Thompson, Joshua Beveridge, Patrick O'Keefe, and your boy Alberto Mielgo. This channel has just kind of become a fan page for this guy. He's genuinely a genius, and hot take, I genuinely do think he's better than Van Gogh. Back in 2019, I bought the art book from Into the Spiderverse, which I think everyone should own. Every single page could be hung up in a museum. And that doesn't go for just this movie. I think that about every single concept art book out there. The only difference with this one though, is that the concept art actually looks like the movie. That is a huge difference for me. Like, yeah, some of the character designs from Alberto Mielgo don't look exactly the same, but so much of it still does. Like, take this example from Encanto or Encanto. I don't give a fuck about this movie. Like, the concept art for this movie is actually really cool, but then the final product looks like every other Pixar Disney movie. While Spiderverse, Justin K. Thompson, and so many other artists, they were able to actually replicate the concept art. Some of the artists I really liked from the art book: Alberto Mielgo, Patrick O'Keefe, Dean Gordon, Jesus Alonso Iglesias, and then Shin Yoon Kim. The list just goes on and on and on. These people are actual artists. And that doesn't go for just these featured people. I truly do believe that every single person that animated, drew, or just worked on anything to do with this movie at all are actual geniuses and are artists. And to fucking prove it, I'm gonna do this game where I look at the credits from Into the Spider-Verse, pick out a random name from a certain category, look them up on Instagram or LinkedIn, and see the other artwork they have, just to prove that these lowest of workers, according to Sony, are some of the most talented people on this planet. Okay, let's look at the first one. Somewhere in the art department, gotta pick a unique name. Joshua Kalinowski. Oh shit. Oh shit. He has his own website and his own reel. No fucking way. I'm sorry, I don't want to be the cringe YouTuber to do over exaggerations, but this guy helped with Last of Us and Death Stranding, and his art is really cool. Let's pick a different one from the art department. Jeffrey M. Thompson. He actually has a website. I like it when they have websites. Oh wow. Okay, that's actually really, really cool. This guy has helped out with both Spider-Verse movies, helping with the TMT movie, Inside Job, Rick and Morty, and Gravity Falls. And his other doodles and other art is just incredible. Like, this is just the second guy that I found. Maybe I'm just giving too much attention to the art department, so to prove my point further, I'm just gonna choose a random person from modeling, Joseph Onya. I have a feeling this one actually won't come up with anything. Nope. Oh, look at this guy, man. Damn, he's worked on a lot of movies. This feels like stalking. Is this stalking? Nah, these people have websites, man. It's just insane how many talented people. I thought I said he was 14 years old. Let's look at another modeler, Richard Geisler. Oh, professional modeler. Let's go. That's cool. That's really cool.
Damn.
I don't know how hard modeling actually is, but I'm just gonna assume it's very hard.
It literally is.
And let's do 3 from the animation, just.
That is my bad. The camera died, so there's not much I could do there. But just making sure that we have 3 people. The person I was going to say it was Sofia Grigorieva, and here's some of her work. Very cool, Sofia. Everyone clap. Everyone clap. Yay, this is good job. Good job.
Emma Cartwright. Oh, she has an Instagram. She got an Instagram.
So this was another one lost by the footage, but here's their Instagram. She seems to do a lot of caricatures and these cool illustrations of women. I don't know, I really like the style of embracing the imperfections. Very cool, very cool.
Okay, let's just do one more animator. Fucking Fernando Franco. Let's see what other work he has done. Oh, Fernando Franco. That's actually really cool. He's made a lot of other stuff. Cool. These were completely at random. And I do this to show you that for the most part, these are the exact same animators Sony had making the Emoji Movie. It's not like Sony all of a sudden hired an entirely new animation staff just to make Spider-Verse. Like, as much as I like the dog on Hotel Transylvania, it's actually a very well animated movie and actually pushed the boundaries of what 3D animation could do. And I guess I like making fun little twists in my videos because, animation studios having these eras of good films kind of a myth. Like, even I thought, man, Sony is kicking it. They must have pumped out Spider-Verse, then Mitchell's versus the Machines, Across the Spider-Verse, doing absolutely insane numbers. But then you remember, but those weren't the only movies they've made in the past 5 years. In between those movies, they released Angry Birds 2, Wish Dragon, and the 4th Hotel Transylvania. And look at DreamWorks. After The Last Wish, everyone's been saying, DreamWorks is back, they're gonna get crazy, But let's not forget that they made Boss Baby 2 recently. They also made How to Train Your Dragon 3, but then they also made that new Trolls movie nobody saw. Do we kind of see the trend here? I think there's just this myth that animation studios have this board of directors that judge movies and say this is either gonna go for the bar or not for the bar. And yeah, I think that definitely does exist. Like, you can take Pixar's Peak. They kind of did do that. They were really pushing for excellent films, and if something wasn't up to par, they would work at it more and more and more. But that's only because they had a very close and selective group of directors working inside of Pixar. They can't really do that anymore. The only reason why they were able to pump out great movie after great movie after great movie was because they had creative freedom to make a silly little movie about a rat that's also a chef. And you see this with what people would call the DreamWorks era. And again, they didn't really have an era. Some bad movies will slip in. Again, it's not some council saying they have to make a certain movie. It's just so much more complicated than that. It's usually somebody working as a producer or as a director, having a contract for a couple of years, helping them out, and then leaving. But now going back to Pixar's situation, they're kind of being creatively restricted, especially by Disney and the Disney Plus quota they always have to meet. The only thing that you could say makes a trend of like a good era of movies from a studio is when that studio has the most creative freedom. That's it. That's the whole point I'm making this video. When you give freedom to the workers, you make things like Spider-Verse. And Sony has officially announced that they want to go into a new creative direction and finally give creative people resources and some freedom. Just so there's more movies like Mitchell's versus the Machines and the Spider-Verse movies. This makes me very hopeful for the future of Sony Animations. Yes, they will make bad movies because it's not just one director directing every single Sony Animations movie. There's different teams working on different things at the same time, and a lot of some are going to be money grabs and others won't. It's just a whole whatever. Phil Lord and Chris Miller have signed a deal with Sony to keep making movies for the next 5 years, and you can already see the influence Spider-Verse has already made in animation. And we will not stand for the fuckers that are going to be all like, now everyone's copying Spider-Verse. And everyone looks to the TMT movie. Just because they both have 2D and 3D kind of mixed in doesn't mean they're the same exact art style. I genuinely don't see the similarity between these two movies. This one's more scribbly and Play-Doh-y, and this is more comic booky and sleek. And why are people getting mad that Puss in Boots has a pastel, rich color to it? We should be encouraging creative movies like this. It actually kind of makes me glad that Sony has the rights to Spider-Man, because if Disney still had the rights to Spider-Man, they would not make a good sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. This concludes the little video essay portion of the video, because I'm basically splitting this into two parts. One, video essay explaining why Sony Animations has changed so much, and two, just an unfiltered rant about Spider-Verse.
Oh my Jesus, I am not editing that shit. I went on this rant for like 2.5 hours, and this video was supposed to be like 8 minutes long, and look how long this shit is right now. So I'm gonna just give you my top 4 moments and move on.
What the fuck is he doing with all that ass? Cheeked up and for what? But I couldn't understand what Hobie was saying half the time. He just saying random shit. I was like, okay, no, but like actually, what was this guy saying? Half the time that I was listening, I was like, did bro just cast a spell? Like, it's really a fucking shame that she has a dead mom cut. Holy shit, is that Kawhi Leonard?
Real quick, there's a lot of people that are probably coming from the Eco-brutalist video, which is super chill, but I just wanted to say some things real fast, just in case people are expecting some things from me. Just little things, but I feel like it needs to be said. I don't want this video to be any longer, so if you're a real one, you're just gonna go check the description. Like, you'll see it. I'll make it easy to see. Don't worry. Okay, bye.